Analytics Advantage. Used to have a website, don't have the website, strictly just focused on YouTube. Seems like the easier platform. It has nothing to do with what I'm talking about today. I just want to open with that. Today's video is going to be a season-long win total video. If you're looking at your screen, you already know who it's about. It is about the Colts. Right now, the current win total for the Colts is 10.5. And if you aren't familiar with how they finished last year, maybe you just forgot, they did go 11-5. So there's another game obviously this year, but it's 11-5 was the 2020 schedule. And so Vegas and the books have really opened up saying we're probably looking at about a similar team with about 11 wins or so. Again, there is one additional game, so yeah, that could, maybe possibly work for them. I'm going to give you some reasons as to why I personally am betting under their total. I actually have them slated out to go like 9-7 at best, and that's really if stuff breaks for them. I will tell you, you're probably better off getting this line sooner than later. And so there have been a couple of videos that I've made earlier. The main one, or the one that I preferred, was the Seahawks plus 3.5 for week 1, when the Seahawks are going to take on the Colts, which is exactly what we're talking about now. When I made that video, when I placed that wager, it was Seahawks plus 3.5. It has dropped substantially, and I say substantially because it crossed that key number of 3. Most places right now have it at Seahawks plus 2.5 only. So they went below that key number. But on top of that, the place that I got 3.5 is a little bit of a sharper book, and they've only moved it down to 3. So the 3s are still out there, but you're going to want to get that sooner than later. And I think we're going to have the same issue with the Colts here, because I was kind of onto this, like, let's fade the Colts thing a little earlier than most, or at least I think I was, before it was published by anybody. But as we get closer to the football season, you're going to see more and more people talk about fading the Colts, and I'm going to show you exactly why. So enough of me ranting, let's just get into it. So for 2020, this is the schedule that the Colts played. They had, obviously, an easier division. Well, I say easy in retrospect because obviously they had the Jaguars, and they had the Texans, who nobody really expected them to do anything last year, and they ended up not really doing anything last year, but the Texans got even worse this year, so that kind of helps the Colts to an extent. The Titans are obviously a good team. I think they're also kind of in for a little bit of a step back this year, but we'll get into that. So if you look at this, though, you can see they started off with a pretty easy schedule. They had the Jaguars, who somehow they managed to lose to in week 1, and that's a big factor for me because the years that Frank Wright has been coaching against or with the Colts, they have lost their season opener every time, and I believe it's at least twice, might be 3 times at this point, but either way, he has not won a season opener. And I think if you watch my previous videos, a lot of that is because he's a coach that's driven by analytics, which is great, and I actually really love that. But if you don't have numbers to go off of, it's really hard to predict anything and to be any good with your predictions. So that first week when he doesn't have anything to go off of and he's just kind of having to, fly off the seam of his pants, well, he's just kind of guessing at what he thinks his team can do best and maybe trying to formulate his plan and then doesn't adjust it well at halftime and they end up losing. So it is what it is, but they lost to the Jaguars, which I think the Jaguars went, like 1-15 or 2-14? I don't even remember off the top of my head, but I know it wasn't good. So anyways, they managed to lose that game. They didn't manage to beat the Vikings, which was surprising, but they won. And then they won against the Jets, which, okay, it's the Jets, obviously another terrible team, so beat them. And then they won against the Bears, which the Bears were just also not a very good team last year. So out of the first 4 weeks, they played 3 teams that ended up just being not good, to be, nice about it. And they won 2 of those 3, another one coming against the Vikings. And then they lost to the Browns, which, okay, that's to be expected. Then they beat the Bengals, and the Bengals really, that's, Joe Burrow's rookie year, and just, The Bengals, again, also not really a good team. So, anyways, we can go through the rest of the schedule, but you can look at it. You can look up last year's win-loss record. They beat a lot of bad teams, and the teams that they did win against, a lot of times it seemed to just kind of come off of like fluky wins. If you look at the Titans game, the first one that they had, and you probably won't remember this right off the top of your head, but there was some interceptions that Ryan Tannehill threw that would just kind of help the Colts not just clinch the game, but it came at really critical times to where the Colts were able to get that 2-possession lead. And then against the Packers, that was like a last-minute win. And then just going, to continue going further with this, the Titans learned off of that first loss, came back and beat the hell out of the Colts the second time around. So another thing to note, and I've talked about this before also in other videos, that quick turnaround usually helps the team that lost the first matchup, which, looking at this as a prime example, the Titans came back and smashed the Colts the second time around. But let's just dig into the rest of their strength of schedule here. And this is a strength of schedule based off of Warren Sharp, and this is a little bit more helpful now that we have everything kind of in retrospect. So we're not just going off of teams that we think are going to be good or, how they did previous years. This is okay. We can look back at 2020, see how these teams actually played out. And the Colts had the absolute easiest strength of schedule. And they went 11-5. So that's not going to be the case this year, right? They're definitely not going to have the easiest strength of schedule, right? Or you would think that they're probably not. Like, how often is that going to happen? Well, let's take a look at it. So now, again, this is according to Warren Sharp or his website. And I'm not trying to keep this secret from anybody. Guys, if you want to look up his information, and I've told you this again before, and I'm sorry I keep kind of referencing old videos. But again, as we get closer to the NFL season, I'm going to put out more and more videos trying to give everybody as much free information as I can. Guys, I do a lot of reading, a lot of research. I love football, and I love gambling on it. I love winning it. I love being able to tell that I'm getting better at something, especially something that involves money, right? But in saying that, I want to talk to people about it. I want to create a community around it. I want to have other people engaged and active and just kind of being able to bounce ideas off people. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm not trying to sell you guys any subscriptions. I'm not trying to sell you anything. You don't need to join me, follow me, whatever. I really just truly want to get to talk to other people about football and know what you guys are thinking. Tell me when you think I'm being crazy, if you think I'm totally overlooking something, or if I'm maybe making things too simplistic. The great thing with gambling is we can all have our own different opinions and views, and at the end of the day, we'll find out who's right. And if I'm right, I might come back and give you some shit on it, but it's all fun. I'm not trying to make fun of buddy. Shit, we're all gonna get something wrong, right? Nobody shoots 100%. Nobody. Not even Kobe Bryant shot 100%. And so, sorry guys, he's just, he's my guy. But anyways, let's go back to what we're talking about here. So the Colts in 2021 have the 12th easiest strength of schedule. So still not exactly like a super difficult strength of schedule, but they're not getting the benefit of having that just easy schedule of just week in, week outs, like bottom of the barrel, just definitely in like a rebuild year kind of team. And so that's going to hurt them. And that alone, I would say, is at least worth a game, right? Like that's to move 12 spots up in difficulty. That's at least worth one. I personally think even 2 games. So let's say that brings them down to from 11 wins that they had last year. Let's say that brings them down to 10, right? Let's just be generous and say they get 10 wins. Well, you might be thinking, okay, well, hey, there's another week this year. They've added that 17th game. So that gets them up to 11, possibly, if they can win that, right? Theoretically, maybe, possibly. I really think it's, like I said, it is more realistic to say that they are going to go 10 wins. Like I said, me personally, I think 9 wins. But even if you want to say they get 1 extra win because of that extra game, something just bounces right for them. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. They get that extra game. I think 10 wins is their absolute ceiling. I really do. And to me, anytime I'm seeing that the line, 10.5, is a game and a half or more above what my line is, that's some value there. Because usually those lines in Vegas, and then what I'm putting together or what Warren Sharp is putting together, is pretty accurate. And I mean, it's like within that half a game, and that's where they get their money at. They want to be right on the middle. Because if you don't know this already, they're not making money just because you're wrong. Because usually there's, you're wrong and the guy across from you is right. So they're just transferring money, $100 from your hand into his hand. They're not really making money off of that. They're making money off the VIG. So you paid 110 just like he paid 110. So they're keeping both of y'all's VIGs, and that's what they're making money. So they want this line to be spot on, so that if this had been 9.5, and I said I think it's going to be 9, and you said you think it's going to be 10, they would get both of our money. They'd get both sides of the VIG, and then they would essentially keep that. So that's how they want to make their money. And I think they're at least a game and a half off with this one. And to kind of back up that idea, if you look here, we have weekly opponent forecast wins. This is the Rams, but the Colts do play the Rams here in their second week. Warren Sharp has kind of put this amalgamation together of all the different books and lines and under-overs and all kind of stuff, and he crunches these numbers to say, okay, this is how many wins they are expected to win. And again, it's not just him saying, oh, well, I just looked at the schedule and this is it. No, this is him going from book to book to book to book and seeing how many wins do you think they're going to win, what's your over-under, what was your line at, and then getting with syndicates, betting syndicates, looking at the potential moves of the team and kind of calculating and crunching this all together. He has the Colts at 9.8 wins. Just like I said, I had it at about a 10-win absolute ceiling maximum. That's their 10 wins is what's expected. So you're getting at least that half a game there. Like I said, I personally think they're really more of like a 9-win team, even with the extra game. But that's me. That's what I'm thinking, and I think that the strength of schedule is really going to hurt them, and I think that they really haven't done anything to address a lot of the issues they had before. Let's take a look at their schedule, though. And I know you can do this, and I can do this, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean a whole hell of a lot. But if we're just looking at the teams, and we're like, okay, well, I think the Seahawks are better, which, again, that was my number one win, or number one bet, was I think the Seahawks are going to cover. The Seahawks are plus 3.5. I don't know why they're underdogs, but either way, if you just look at the teams and I say, I think the Rams are going to beat them, I think the Titans are going to beat them, I think the Ravens will beat them, that's one thing, that's very subjective. But if you look at how many wins these teams are expected to get across the board, so you have the Seahawks at a 10-win team, the Rams at a 10-win team, Titans at 9, Ravens at 11. You have the Colts playing against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 teams that are expected to get double-digit wins. And since I'm not seeing the Colts do that, I'm going to say that they lose about every one of those games, which is at least 5 losses. And we only need them to really get to 6 losses to get the under. So they only got to lose one more game, and we know they can lose a game to the Jaguars. They lost a game to the Jaguars last year. The Jaguars have gotten, better with their draft class this year. We could see them losing to the Cardinals, the Patriots. Other teams that aren't double-digit wins, but like the Titans, that's 2 games, and they're almost certainly going to split that. I cannot see the Colts sweeping the Titans and the Titans getting to 9 wins. Even like the 49ers at 9 wins or 9.5 wins, that's another team where, it's not a double-digit win, but I can't see the Colts really winning this game. And maybe that will change as we get some more stats and analytics going into that Week 7 game. I just don't think it's, and that's an away game, going from Indy to San Francisco for Sunday Night Football. Guys, that is them leaving, traveling, roughly half the country to not only play on the West Coast, but to play the West Coast time zone, Sunday night football. I can tell you right now, that is the 6th W. Just looking at this, there is absolutely no way these guys get over 10 wins. I'm going to leave it at that as far as looking at their schedule. Feel free to go to his website. It's sharpfootballstats.com, or just look at the screen, guys. I'm giving you the Colts, but if you want other teams, you can go to the website. Last thing I'm going to do here is, I know I'm harping on the strength of schedule and all that stuff. And you might be thinking, like, most people would, yeah, dude, but like they probably made some changes to their team. They probably got a little bit better. I know they got Carson Wentz. I know they made some changes because obviously Phillip Rivers isn't there. Plus they get an extra game with 17 weeks. I could definitely see them, getting to 11 wins. I could see them getting there. Well, let's take a look and see what they addressed in the offseason. One issue they had, and I don't really think it was a big issue because their defense was decent at least. But it did, again, obviously get helped out by the fact that they had the easiest schedule. But one thing that they at least thought they had a problem with was the linebackers. And they bring in Malik Jefferson, not a huge name. He wasn't breaking the bank. The guy is a very solid player, comes out of University of Texas. Been in the league for, I don't know how many years now, like 4 or 5 years. But solid player. I should be able to help that team, give them some depth at linebacker. As I'm looking through the rest of this, I don't really see a lot of other names that stand out aside from Eric Fisher. And obviously, I'm leaving Carson Wentz out. You can say what you want about Carson Wentz. I don't think he's better than Phillip Rivers. I really don't. And I think that Phillip Rivers fit this scheme better. I think that Frank Reich and his previous history with Phillip Rivers knew that he wanted a guy like Phillip Rivers to come in and lead this team because he wanted a lot of quick check downs and dump offs, and he basically wanted to use the pass as an extension of the run game. With guys like T.Y. Hilton not really getting these long deep bombs anymore, but more of like quick off the line kind of things. And Michael Pittman using their big tight ends with Mo like Cox and Trey Burton, being able to use these guys on these quick plays. Keep it running, keep it moving, keep going, keep it going. Let's grind these guys down. Let's grind the opponent down. We might not get 50-yard passes, but we're going to get a lot of 6, 7, 8-yard dump offs, and we're going to keep the sticks moving. And then we're going to use Jonathan Taylor, and we're going to use our run game and our great offensive line to come in and just bash the door down and grind these guys down into submission. And so one thing is they lost Anthony Costanzo, and he was an amazing lineman. And I'm sure if you've even played like Madden, you've seen he always had that little like special circle under him or whatever. Dude was great. They lost him this offseason. Who did they bring in to try and fill that role? They brought in Eric Fisher. Eric Fisher, I guess I would say he was good. He was great. He was on the Chiefs last year. He's a decent to above average lineman. The problem is he tore his Achilles in the AFC was it semifinals against the Bills, basically, or no, it was the AFC Championship against the Bills. He tore his Achilles, and if you might not have thought of that, and so I just said it right now. But if you remember watching that game, you remember watching him tear his Achilles, and from there on out, it was just like the Chiefs were a different team. The line was just too banged up. That was back in January. They're saying he's going to be ready to go by August. If he's even able to get on the floor or get on the court on the field, by August, that's good. It's good news and it's good progress for him. But he hasn't been able to really work out that leg with the torn Achilles. It does take about 6 months of rehab and surgery and all that kind of stuff just to kind of get you back to being able to move around again. So if he comes in August and he goes to training camp and he's out there week 1, I think he's probably better than most linemen. But I'm not putting a lot of faith in this guy who just had an Achilles tear. And he's a lineman, so it's not like he's a receiver and he needs to use all these he doesn't have to be explosive necessarily with his Achilles. But it's going to make a difference, guys, especially for a team like the Colts who wants to play this ground and pound kind of game, who wants to use guys like Jonathan Taylor. To me, that just it was a good signing. I guess it was the best guy they could bring on at the time. I just don't think it's going to be enough to get them back to where they were at. I really do think Phillip Rivers was amazing at these quick little checkdowns and reading the defense and being able to get that ball out of his hand, within 3 seconds, just 1-2, boom, 1-2, boom, 1-2, and just move it down the field. Yes, he wouldn't, make mistakes. He's going to throw picks. He's Phillip Rivers. He's going to make bad reads. But I think Carson Wentz, I don't even think he can do that. I don't think he can read the defense as well as Phillip Rivers. I don't think he is as fast as Phillip Rivers as far as like releasing the ball. I don't think he's as good as reading a blitz. I think he's going to get blindsided. I think he's going to have a lot more turnovers as far as like fumbles, probably interceptions too, as Phillip Rivers. And I think that Phillip Rivers, while he maybe didn't pass, he didn't have like 80-yard passes or bombs down the field, he was able to keep the clock moving, keep the ball moving, and kind of leave his defense in a good situation every time, or most of the time. Whereas I think Carson Wentz is going to set these guys up for failure more often than Phillip Rivers did. And that's a huge swing, man. It's a huge difference to go from a guy like Phillip Rivers, who's consistently at least getting you to midfield, to Carson Wentz, who may be turning the ball over, on your side of the field, or not being able to move the ball at all, or just making mental errors, or taking bad sacks. So I think it's a downgrade. I think it's a downgrade all over the place for them. So a combination of not addressing issues, not bringing in new talent to fill in voids, as well as having a more difficult strength of schedule, I think all leads them to about a 9-win season this year. And they are really lucky and kind of get bailed out by the fact that their division is pretty weak. I still think they're going to beat the Jaguars at least once. I still think they're going to beat the Texans at least once, probably twice. The Titans, I think they're probably going to go 1-1. Maybe that'll shift one way or the other, but for now, let's just say 1-1. Like I said, I really think they're going 9-7. 10-6 is their absolute ceiling to me, and either way, I'm taking that under 10.5 as soon as I possibly can. So I hope you guys learned something. I hope this was insightful. Like I said previously or in other videos, I have other videos coming out. We still need to cover the Ravens. I haven't made that video just yet. I do want to do some fantasy football talk because I have some guys here that I've just been looking into more, learning more about recently. And also on fantasy notes, I have kind of put together this thesis, I guess if you want to call it that, about what formulas win what leagues. And so I'll have a video on that to try and help win some leagues. But either way, hopefully, again, guys, this was helpful. Thank you for watching it, giving me some time today. Please like and subscribe. Comment below anything you think that's totally being crazy on. Have a great day.